Okay, so we're starting a little late, so I'm going to make mine extremely brief. We have a group of great artists and artistry facilitators here, so I'm going to leave the door open for them, but I just want to get on the soapbox for a couple minutes. Do I need to look in the camera? I'm so uncomfortable right now with this. You don't want that. The arts is important, it's very fundamental. Before I got here, which is what took me a little longer than it should have taken me, I spoke with one of the great legends, Clifford Jordan, saxophonist, or saxophonist, however they say it, his widow. He grew up in Chicago, Illinois, and his widow sent me a copy of a biography she did for him. Clifford went to, there was a, let me see if I can find it. There was a, they called him Captain, I forget his last name, but he was a music instructor. And people like Nat King Cole studied with him, Dinah Washington, and even Red Fox. All of these people came out of that classroom. And it makes me think, if there was not a classroom that was facilitating the arts, specifically music or whatever it would be, if we would have these geniuses amongst us, if we would be able to listen to recordings around Christmas time and hear chestnuts roasting on an open fire from that great smooth voice, or the comedy of Red Fox. There's so many comedians that talked about listening to Red Fox in the basement on an album. This came from the arts being facilitated with young people. So I've always said this, if we talked about the arts in any form, anyone knows that I say the next great Coltrane, Miles Davis, Thelonious Monk, and I'm mentioning jazz musicians because I'm a jazz musician. They're not in the institutions, they're in the hood, waiting to be discovered, waiting to be motivated, waiting to find some form of development. And they're not going to have it. They're not going to have the resources. So we have to figure out a way to make sure they're able to get the funding, or at least the environment necessary to be their best selves. I'm going to let everybody talk, and I want to end it with a quote by Jerry Gant after everything has ended, because I think Jerry Gant is speaking from the great beyond. He summed everything up when he talked about the story of his life. Now, I don't know who wants to go first. Who? Andres? Andres is, she's a great visual artist. You'll see her art all over the city of Newark. And she's an educator as well. She's done children workshops, teaching children. I don't want to mess up words because I don't know nothing about visual arts. I just know it's pretty. So I'm going to let you talk, okay? And oh, and after everyone says what they have to say, we'll open the floor for all 20 of you. They can't see the audience. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Andres Brady. I am a visual artist, art educator, and event curator here in the city of Newark. I created a presentation about advocating for equity in art. So just a little bit about myself. Like I said, I am a fine artist, a muralist, an art educator, and event curator. I'm also the founder and CEO and director of my own business, which is AB Arts. I am from Newark, raised in Newark. I'm an alum of Science Park High School, alum of Clark Atlanta University. I'm an international artist, so I have traveled to Brazil, recently traveled to Africa through the city of Newark for a sister city cultural exchange project. And I'm also a community advocate and very passionate about this topic. So I want to thank Joy for including me and allowing space for artists like myself and everyone else here to speak on these things. So I'm going to just get right into it. Not really here to talk about me. You could kind of look me up if you want to see, but these are some of my murals that are around the city. I'm very big on putting messages in my art that are going to encourage and uplift people who engage with the art. I also am an art educator, so I was a full-time teacher at a Chief Community Charter School in Clinton Hill for 2 years. So I work with a lot of students in Newark, ages K through all the way up to high school. And like I said, I have traveled internationally, so I've been to Jamaica, Brazil, Angola, and have done workshops and taught students as well. So I'm gonna just kind of get into it. I kind of am basing this off of my own experience and my own opinions. I don't have the facts or data, but this is what I see happening, and this is my experience in my art community. So to me, equity is exactly what this picture is about. It's not always about equality and giving everyone the same thing. It's about lifting those up who really need it. And a lot of times we don't see that happen in art. A lot of times I don't see it happening in visual art. So I'm gonna just get into some of the things that I believe. The art is centralized in one location, which is a problem and problematic because Newark is a city with 5 wards and art only takes place mainly downtown. So people that are artists within other communities don't have access and are unaware of things that are happening, right? Art organizations rarely engage in communities outside of downtown. And these are organizations that I have worked with, but I have never seen Newark Museum or Newark Arts or other organizations go out and put on large programs in the West Ward, in the South Ward, in the East Ward, right? And that is an issue, and that's also talking about equity. My PowerPoint is not doing what it's supposed to do, but it's okay. The people in positions of power typically aren't lifelong residents of Newark and don't know what residents of Newark actually need. So people that are in position of power are usually people that go to college here and then get engaged, but you've never been on 18th Avenue, Chancellor Avenue, Springfield Avenue to really engage and know what the community of Newark needs and what the community of Newark outside of downtown even looks like. Opportunity are often shared within specific networks and given to people who know people. And I know this specifically because a lot of people don't want to pass the torch down, and it's a lot of gatekeeping that happens within the arts scene. And for this, because of this, artists and creatives that aren't within the Newark art scene put their artistic expressions aside because they are unaware of these spaces, and most times they don't feel welcome in these spaces. I know that because I know artists within all calibers. I know the established artists like Michelle Black and, you know, people that are esteemed artists, and I also know people that are emerging artists that are just starting out, but it's a big gap, and we need to bridge that gap. And last but not least, it's too much politics involved in the arts, and art is not a political platform. Art is an expressionist platform, and when politics become involved, it takes away from the true expression because artists are not able to express themselves or have to watch what they say because of whatever political backlash you know, they may get. And I know that because I'm an artist that speaks out and speaks my truth, and oftentimes I might not be invited in spaces because I'm looked at as someone who is too expressive or I'm too opinionated. And I think that that's really one of the big problems. Art is not a political platform. Some artists choose to speak on politics, but we need to kind of like separate art from politics. And the only way politics can be involved is if you're actually funding. A lot of times these people in positions of power pick and choose what they want, and that's where it becomes an issue of equity. So thank you. I just wanted to share my thoughts and opinions. Those are the facts for me. Thank you. Again, my name is Andres Brady. My website is andresbradyart.com. You can find me there. My email address is andresbradyart@gmail.com as well. And I'm always open to working, consulting, creating with organizations and people in the city of Newark who are actually passionate about touching communities, not just in downtown, but in all of Newark.
Nice.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andres. She came in at 5 minutes, 20 seconds.
Questions after she's
After everyone.
Oh, okay.
I want to just touch on a couple things, and then we'll go on to the next person. Andres talked about being involved in the community, not just being someone who visits the community. And there's a quote from the Clifford Jordan, the Chicago thing that I liked. A jazz bassist, famous jazz bassist by the name of Richard Davis said, "Maybe you weren't afraid of the cops, but you were afraid of Captain Derek, Diet, whatever his last name is." And that was the music teacher, because there was a relationship between those students and that teacher. They understood that this teacher cared. It wasn't that he was just coming with an agenda and saying, "Oh, I'm gonna come in and visit, spend a few hours with you a week," but there was a relationship there. So I'm glad she dealt with that. And there was something else you talked about, politics. The best example in history is the Medici family, who gave money to the artist and said, "Do what you need to do." There was nothing else that they wanted. They just wanted great artistry attached to Italy. And I think if we had something like that happening, me and Antoinette, no, that ain't happening in the corporate world, not in jazz. You know, they're dangling a carrot in front of you. But I'm glad that she talked about that, because artists need to be free to be artists, you know, and not be handcuffed, because you can't really practice your artistry that way. Okay, I'm going to shut up now. And who's next?
I guess I can go next.
Okay.
All right, so I don't know if I'm going to use
the man with the most beautiful dreads in the world, Roy Campbello, everybody.
All right, so how is everybody doing?
Me to pull this up so that
No, I don't think I might not use it, because I was inspired to just talk like her. So, my name is Roy Campbello. I'm a resident of Newark. I don't know how long I'm going to be talking, because I had a lot of talking points, but she summed up everything lovely in a few minutes, so I'm going to try to keep mine toned down.
Okay, I'm timing you.
So, I am a professor of capoeira. I'm an artist in Newark, and I have a tattoo shop in Newark. But I also teach painting, and I teach a few different art expressions. I teach people how to, like the combination of hip-hop, dance, and capoeira, because hip-hop has its roots in Brazil and Angola. And a lot of people don't realize that the jazz influence on Brazil created a style called bossa nova.
That's right.
And when you know those things, you can add, for lack of a better word, equity to a community. And I bring up certain things that need to change with us, and as a people. And when I say as a people, when you look at black people, we tend to say we're the mother and father of civilization. And then we have been taught to discriminate against people. When you can go into our community and you can see a bodega that's owned by a Puerto Rican or a Dominican. You can go to a Chinese store that's owned by a Chinese person or a Korean. You can go to a you can go to a building and rent from a Jewish family. And there are different people in our community. Some people say people are leeching off the community, but some people are there generations because at one point they were in that community too. So it was a Jewish family in the community where I grew up. And I grew up in a section where it was a lot of Brazilians and Puerto Ricans and Jewish people. It was two Jewish families that actually stayed. They were there before the riots. Anyway, my point of bringing that up is that in Brazil, my family were absorbed in all cultures. So we had Fulanis that were from Ethiopia and, well, originally it was Abyssinia, from that area in Abyssinia, and they spoke Amharic and Aramaic, excuse me. And when I got here, there were words that I knew that me and a Jewish friend of mine, we talked. I learned Hebrew, and Aramaic and Hebrew are identical. Certain variations of the tongue are different, and my point of bringing all of this up is that I use that in my art now. And when you can express things in a certain way as an artist, you're free to include culture. And that culture expands when we can embrace each other without fear of repercussions from, like, with the kid I grew up with. His family loved me. I was at his house. They were at my house. And it's funny because they were like, oh, you're probably one of the lost tribes. And because there were Fulani Hebrew people that were of African descent, Afro-Asiatic descent. And Hebrew itself is an Afro-Asiatic language. I'm going to be all over the place because as it's coming, I had a presentation planned out, but she inspired me to just speak from the heart. So I'm going to be all over the place, but you can come back. You can rein me back in when you ask some questions. So anyway, my name, Cambello, in Latin, it means war camp. And Campbell is an English version of that Latin word. Because what Caesar did when he conquered Britannia, he took the Germanic languages and mixed them with the Afro-Asiatic languages, and they helped steer Old English into a hidden language for different reasons. So that's why the sun sounds like sun. And all of those things were hidden. But it was an artistic form of hiding something in plain sight. So as an artist, you could literally take something symbolic and then create something that someone who's enlightened would understand. And those who didn't know the parable of it were somehow moved internally because supposedly they believed certain things were in your DNA. An example of that is, I will write a little bit on the board. So you don't have to pull it up. I'm going to write on this side. Pardon me. Sorry. All right, so one example is, I know you've all heard of the Monster Energy drink.
Yes, Monster.
Okay, so Monster Energy drink, it's supposed to be, it's supposed to be 3, I'm going to do it a little bigger, sorry. Okay, can you hand me my eraser right there? Countdown, what am I looking like, Joy?
You got 50 seconds.
Oh my goodness. Oh man, she's killing me. Okay, so, all right, so I'm gonna do this real quick. Okay, so this is the Monster Energy drink logo. So Monster Energy drink says that this logo, can you see it? Okay, so they say it's a claw, so it's this way, but a claw mark goes like this. Okay, so in actuality what this is a va, va, va. So a va is a Hebrew letter. Its symbolic symbol is a 6. So, yes, but 666 is symbolic. So don't get caught up in, because 666 again, don't get caught up in that. But the people who created that were visual artists, and they knew that people would equate that with something that's a monster or a beast. Now, in Revelations, they speak about, the time is up. All right, so I'm gonna shut it down. But my point of saying that is that you can be creative visually, and that symbol was an alchemaic symbol. So that 666 was carbon 12, which is 6 protons, 6 neutrons, and 6 electrons. So it's the makeup of the human family. And it meant us in our beast form, and we could become one with God, and that's what that was about. But visually, it speaks to what she was saying.
Well, hopefully.
Sorry, I got caught up.
Hopefully you'll be able to elaborate. I'll ask a question during questions. But I'm glad that he brought that up, because even when all of this was being compiled, I thought about language as an art. It's an art form. I'm studying Arabic now, and it's amazing when I'm looking at the characters and how they relate. And even the wording, so language, because it's a form of communication. When you do a drawing, you're communicating with people you'll never meet, but they see your art. You know, when we get in the club and we sing, or a musician plays, it's a form of communication. You're an architect, right? Oh, you are? Oh, okay. Look at you. So it's, even when you draft a great piece of work, there are people that will see your work and be inspired that you'll never meet. But they'll see that building or they'll see that sculpture. It's a form of communication. Chopin, which is one of my favorite composers. I remember I was young the first time I heard Chopin, and I just felt melancholy every time I listened to his music. And I found out later on he was sickly when he wrote some of the pieces that I listened to. This man been gone, as my people say, been done gone. But I could still feel what he was feeling when he, composed that piece or those pieces. So I'm gonna move on to the next. Who's the next person? You guys are doing it. Okay, so we have Ryan. While she's coming to the mic, I was so inspired. She just had a one-woman show. Can I call it a woman show? At the Newark Museum, and I'm sure she's going to tell you more about her life. I'm not going to say it. I'm going to let her say it. But she's the way she takes music and incorporates it into healing, and I was so impressed. Because we had worked together with Nina, and I was impressed with her with that too. But I was like, wow, this is something else. I wrote her like a novel by text. But but this is Ryan, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. And hello. My name is Ryan McNeil, and the first thing that I'll say is I am a teaching artist, and the most important thing why I'm so passionate about this subject is I am a product of inequity in arts. So my whole adolescence, right, from the time I was 14, even younger, from the time I was 12 all the way up until 17, I was groomed to get a record deal. Like, that was the goal. Studio time, singing constantly. I really didn't have like a childhood, so to speak. Didn't do too many sleepovers, didn't do too many things, but everyone knew me as Ryan the singer, Little Ryan as a singer. And unfortunately, when it was time, the record company decided they didn't want to move forward, and I was left to fall back on academics, which I had paid no attention to. But the most important part was I decided, okay, well, if I'm going to have to go to college, I'll just do music. When I stepped into those auditions, I was blown. Like, my mind was blown. Seriously. They give you a sheet of paper. They ask you to sight read. And then they ask you, what would you like to take up, jazz or classical? Those are the only two options for a vocalist. I'm like, jazz, I guess that's closest to R&B. Then they'll give you a chord chart, a chart, and you'll have to improvise, and you'll have to sing along. Again, no idea. Now, at this point, I had already graduated high school. So on the high school level, as a music teacher now, you are expected to be able to sight read in some degree. I had no idea. You might as well say that my education level, my music education level at that point was of a 4th grader. Seriously, of a 4th grader. And here I am. I'm the most talented vocalist in my school. Every school I went to, always picked to sing solos, always picked to, hey, we have an assembly, come on down. In the community, can you sing for me? But I wasn't taught, what does that mean on the other side? It's great to be a performer, but when you go to these prestigious levels, meaning you want to advance, even if you're trying to do a gig, the first thing I'm going to ask you is, do you read? Do you read? Do you have the knowledge of the music? Because even if I didn't read music, right, I still needed to know to some degree the history of music. But it wasn't offered in my community, and it wasn't offered simply because they did not feel that performing artists deserved the right to be educated. Think about that. Didn't deserve the right to be educated, meaning, well, if you're not playing a saxophone, you're not playing a flute, you're not playing a clarinet, oh, you don't need to know how to read music. Well, why not? If I get a gig and I'm flown over to Australia, or I'm flown to South Africa, or I'm flown to Japan, who always is a big, we import the most, export the most to Japan for as far as our music, we don't speak the same language. So how are we going to speak the language of music if I can't even read music? These things are important. But again, it was not, that weight was just not put on it. So I get through college by the skin of my teeth, right? And I was placed in classes with students who weren't music majors. And it was a little embarrassing, but at the same time, it taught me a lot. It taught me when I'm in the classroom, I'm going to make sure this doesn't happen to the next student. So 2008, I graduate. I land myself a job here right in the city of Newark at Westside High School. And I'm blown by the amount of lack of education. So I'm at a high school level. By the time they get to high school, we're told students should know X, Y, Z. I'm starting literally on a first grade level with a lot of my students. And that still continues to this day. So what is the issue? So we're here to talk about the lack of arts access is a true equity issue that needs attention. The quote I remember the most says that music is an imitation of life. So I find oftentimes this equity issue lies because we're not putting enough emphasis on how music is a part of life, right? We want our kids to thrive and all this, but why are we not paying attention to how we can utilize music other than just becoming rich? I can teach you about history through music. I can teach you how to, as Ms. Joy explained, how to calm yourself, how to allow yourself to go through the healing process through music. And all these things are accessible, right? But unfortunately, when we go to professional developments or we're in our classroom, we're either hit with, well, you need to get data, have your students write, and then you're left to your own vices to create ways to do that. Or when you're professional development, they're not giving you the how, they're just telling you why and what. So those are things that I see need improvement. I am no longer actively inside the school classroom, but I still conduct private lessons, and I offer services in the community. So I'm doing a Baby and Me class where I get a chance to, you know, touch and talk to a few people and just get them to see. Because right now the current issue is social emotional learning, right? We've all heard that, social emotional learning. But I wonder what would happen. Okay, I wonder what would happen if they would say, well, how can we implement that and bring into the picture music therapy? And the last thing I want to say is the artists and most teachers becomes tired because of inequity. You no longer are allowed to be the artist, the teaching artist. That artist goes away because the focus is too much on the teacher. Thank you so much.
Period. Okay. I'm sorry, but we're gonna have some follow-up question time.
Okay.
She really, you grew up in Newark, right?
I grew up in Union. I wanted to go to arts high school so bad. I called every day.
Yeah.
And that was another issue.
You should have lied and told them that you got your honor dress.
I was so young. I was so young. It's all right.
I was in Newark and I didn't get it. Don't worry.
Okay. I didn't say that because y'all edited that. Okay.
It just wasn't enough education on how to get into those type of programs. So I was just a little naive. I was just a naive. This is in my face.
Oh, I hope I wasn't in the mic when I said that other thing.
Turn it off. Thank you. Yeah, so go ahead with your question.
Well, no, I'm gonna ask you when it's all over.
Okay.
But I'm glad she talked about knowledge in music. But we gotta do question and answer. Oh, we got 2 more people. Oh, that's right. Okay, so long story short, I'm grateful that Arts High, we did have a magnet school, and I did learn theory. Antoinette is coming up next, and she'll deal with this because she's traveled the world, and she knows what it is. Sometimes you don't bring your own band. So when you were saying it, it made me think you have to know your music. Yes. I traveled northern Italy, and I had a pickup band everywhere I went. And I had to know my stuff, because if you don't know it and you're the band leader, you in trouble. Antoinette? What's my name? Montague. Oh, she's the CEO of Jazz Woman to the Rescue. She's incredible. She's the type of person you can't, I shouldn't say this, but she's the type of person you can't talk to with a full bladder, because you gonna mess something up. But she's an incredible artist. She's an advocate for local artists here in Newark because she was born and raised in Newark. And I thought that it would be great that she would be amongst us today. Antoinette.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. It's a privilege to be included in the great city of Newark. Everybody say the great city of Newark. That's exactly, and we have to teach our children about what is great about the arts. The foundation of music in this country is the blues. Blues is the roots. Everybody say blues is the roots. Blues is the roots. Everything else is the fruit.
Everything else is the fruit.
What comes from the blues? Jazz is a baby of the blues. R&B, rhythm and blues, pop, rap, so that our children understand that the blues was powerful enough and is powerful enough to help lift our chakras out of enslavement, out of hard labor. We built this country. So reparations or repair to the nation must come through also equity in the arts, through all of the amazing, beautiful art that is created around this city, that when I bring friends in from Harlem who want to look around the city and they say, show me the bad parts. And I show them everywhere, even in Ground Zero, Springfield Avenue, and my family came from those projects. They're like, this is beautiful. Why they always, I said, because people lie all the time about folks in places and spaces where art flourishes. If you can figure out how to marginalize artisans in a local area of, you know, what is called a suppressed place, you know, but no place is more suppressed than places like Cuba, where they put in so much of an investment into their artists. Some of the finest artists you'll come across are from this great city: Melba Moore, Whitney Houston, Lauryn Hill. These are people born in this great, Sarah Vaughan, you know, James Moody, Linda Jones. I mean, so I believe that we must begin to be advocates for legislation, for equity throughout this entire nation. What happened to separate but equal? But when it comes to the arts, they don't even include that inside of the discussion.
That's right.
So we must have equity in the arts throughout the entire nation. And Newark is forward. We do lead the way for the rest of the country. So as artisans, for us to galvanize and get you know, our names on whatever kind of list it is, and find people who, we need people who can write legislations for equity in the arts throughout the country. I moved to Fairfield, Connecticut for job reasons. It was always hard to find work here in my own great city. And what I found was every school I went to, Staples, Westport High School, had the most amazing art programs. You walk in, they got those big old timpani drums and saxophones all lined up, and then they have cabaret night every other week, and it's all of these students who didn't create jazz, who didn't create the blues, you understand?
Yeah.
Now, we're genius enough to create a template that the world loves. The world loves jazz. The world loves the blues. We have been taught to be ashamed of those things. We need all of us to galvanize and put the pride inside of what we created, what levitated and elevated us after being oppressed, beaten, and worked like dogs to build this country. So I'm looking for reparations to come from places, well, I'm sorry, like Domino Sugar, because we sure picked plenty of cane. I'm looking for it to come from places like Uncle Ben's Rice, because we sure did harvest rice from West Africa. I'm looking for it to come from, I don't need anything but the Fruit of the Loom to come up and make sure that they take care of art happening in our schools, that there should be nothing but free education for every black person in this entire nation, no matter what they decide to study. If you hold people back for centuries from reading and education, don't think that, you know, they really care about you catching up inside of art and music. So we have to care.
That's right.
We have to be advocates and be a demand for it. They took art out of Roseville Avenue Elementary School in 1972. I was there. I was a little clarinet player, and I remember our teachers protesting outside. And we were like, come back in. And they said, no, we are here for you, because they got rid of Miss Gizzy, your art teacher, and we got rid of your music teacher, who I later came across, who was subbing in a band. And, you know, I said, aren't you the guy that was, I said, did you do anything at Roseville Avenue? Yeah, that was one of the better schools. I said, you told me I couldn't play saxophone because I was a girl. And the whole band in rehearsal was like, boo. So it's marginalization. We have a problem in arts right now, especially in jazz and music, that the divide and conquer from slavery is still on. So what you do is disenfranchise your people that have been in the game for the last 3-4 decades, and make sure that you elevate the youngest instead of making sure that we have equity and representation for females, males, old, young, short, tall, fat, skinny. We must be a family, but we must be a family of artists. That's right. We must be that they separate the singers and disenfranchise them. Some women instrumentalists disenfranchise women singers. Can you even imagine such? How dare those who are marginalized? So legislation, let's figure out the way to get legislation written so that there is equity in art throughout this entire country. The numbers are wrong. They are not true about how much art is in disenfranchised neighborhoods. 30% versus the rest of the country. I don't believe your numbers. Show me. And if there's one school that is lacking music and art in its curriculum and not hiring teachers to come in and present and educate, you know, I educate quite a bit. That's my passion. But I also am a performer. I'm 62 years old. I'm not quitting. You're not going to tell me I'm too old to get up there, because I will slay any and everything, as Joy knows. This is another great artist here, Joy Brown. So thank you, Antoinette Montague from the great city of Newark. Jazz woman to the rescue. Come on, y'all. Jazz woman to the rescue. Yeah, jazz woman to the rescue. Jazz artist to the rescue. Thank each and every one of you. And Joy, you too, to the rescue.
Antoinette Montague. And this is her all the time. That's not a performance. That's Antoinette. I'm glad that she touched. I hope people really do have questions. I know I have questions. But I'm going to let this sister get up, because I know she's going to sum everything up. I just met her today, right?
Them. My pronouns are they, them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's all right.
I'm going to mess that up. So I just met Fallon today.
There we go.
And I can't do it. Fallon, yeah. Thank you.
I'm not shy of that. I can stand over here too. Hi everyone, my name is Fallon Davis. My pronouns are they, them. I'm a non-binary revolutionary, because representation matters across the spectrum. I'm one of the only folks a lot of times that's representing the queer culture and identity, which also originated in black culture. Queer culture is black culture, and that's what people don't know as well. A lot of the greats, the Audre Lordes, the Bessie Smith, I mean, we're the queer revolutionaries who I look up to now. So along with being non-binary and radical, I'm proud to be a vegan. I'm proud to be a sustainable fashion designer, an environmental justice warrior, a community activist dedicated to changing the lives of black and brown families, and the proud founder, CEO, and president of STEAM Urban. STEAM Urban is a STEAM discipline, so STEAM is science, technology, engineering, arts, mathematics. It's a 501c3 nonprofit that was founded to change the way education looks and feels for black and brown students of all ages by tackling 3 main topic areas: environmental justice, which we are in a crisis systemically. Black and brown communities are attacked climate-wise across the board. Second, social justice, because if we're going to talk about changing anything when it comes to black and brown agenda, education, arts, we have to talk about the injustices and what they really are. And then educational equity, because what I have found is that there is no curriculum that gears towards the success of black and brown people as it stands today. Our comprehensive STEAM curriculum is taught using innovative and interactive educational experiences while using trauma-conscious healing modalities and addressing the realities of those located in under-resourced communities. Creating a resolution is what I did to the inequities of arts, the inequities of education, the inequities of lack of access to resources, period. So I covered that in one organization. Because when I decided to found a nonprofit, I wanted it to be something that was substantial for the community, something that wasn't just a fluff, an after-school program, a summer camp, but was something that can be of in addition to, right, and be a replacement to. And so we write our curriculum as well. It's all designed off of national standards, and we hire artists, educators across the board who are radicals. And so it's a little different than just hiring your educators or folks who want to work with children. We are looking for representation. We're looking for people who come in and share their lived experiences, who tell their stories through every form that they find to be of subject of interest that they want to share. So our resolution, the reason why we developed this is our resolution to equity is we believe that the work to eradicate educational inequity involves a wraparound approach. Through my 7 years of research, hands-on implementation of STEAM curriculum across sectors, I've worked with all ability individuals. I've designed curriculum for every type of person, from seniors to those with intellectual and developmental disabilities to professional development to masters in the field. It takes a team, it takes collaboration, and it takes intentional partnerships. As you can see, solo artists, solo educators have enough of a job to do the work, to give their energy, their creative energy. So I pride myself on being an arts activist, a creative entrepreneur who advocates for the arts by being the person that can sit at the table and write legislation, to be on different boards that advocates for the lack thereof and to be that voice, and then to hire folks like these who are passionate, and because in education you can get a foot in the door. There's nobody telling me no that I can't go in with an education program. I go in with a different lens, though. Not only do I go in and want to do what they're doing, no, I wanted to create something completely different than that. And that was to really address what's going on. Do students know that every 5 wards is a food desert? Do they know that what that means is that the states are legislation hasn't found a way to define urban agriculture, so your gardens and farms and parks in your communities are purposefully not being resourced. So the lack of grocery stores is by design. It's systemic. So we can't also talk about the arts without talking about hunger, without talking about lack of access to health care. You know, these are the things we talk about in alignment with the arts. Because for Black and brown cultures and communities, we have to have the arts. It's not an option. We are the arts, and we need to be able to advocate for our world, to change our world. So our programming is free, consistent, accessible, available year-round, taught by these radical educators, and our students are given the endless possibilities of their futures. They're giving a voice and a platform to be valued and protected, and they are able to decide what their creative freedom and innovative approaches to life are going to be. That's good. I'm almost done. So all of our efforts can be tailored and adjusted in person, virtual, year-round, or through the summer. We work with gardens, parks, green spaces. We work with your neighborhood associations. We work with the police associations. We design programming that feeds the need. We ask what the community wants, and we design that. We don't just assume. But the bad assumption is that Black and brown people don't deserve, or that Black and brown people need to keep paying for things. I don't believe in that. I believe that that is the reparation. We deserve everything for free of high quality, and that's STEAM Urban.
Thank you so much, Alex. Okay, so we have like 10 minutes. I gotta run out the door. I'm so sorry, y'all. I got booked for a gig like on the train on my way here. I want to ask a question to every artist in this room, and I know that you work on the, I guess, the more legislative corporate side, but I want you to put your mind. I would say you're an artist. Yeah. If you won the Mega Powerball, whatever it's called, right? $20 million in your pocket. How would you contribute some of that money, or at least $1 million, to the arts? You got 1 minute. And you can just pass the mic.
How would I? Well, one, I have an invention that I would work on, the invention that everyone in the world would be able to use. So I would take that, some of that money, and put it into that. Okay. And it's an artistic thing. So I would get with architects and engineers and make that accessible. Okay. So then I would have money to fund organizations, but you also have to give time and the money to the proper organizations, because some organizations you can donate to and they won't put what you wanted. They only have to put a certain percentage, and some people will just put that percentage into something. So again, it would have to be a collective, and you would have to brainstorm, put the think tank together and see where stuff is going and things like that.
Okay.
I would create artist housing. Artists need places to stay at affordable prices. I think the whole entire nation is going through a housing crisis, and even myself as an artist, I create art for all of these organizations, corporations, but I don't have housing, and that's a big issue. Also, artists need space to create for free. So if you're a musician, you want to go to a studio, why should I have to pay X amount of dollars to, you know, create and do what I do? So I think if I was in a position of power, I would create space for artists to live, work at affordable cost, because that is a big issue that myself and a lot of my artist friends talk about all the time. And then also, like I said, just creating spaces that these organizations and entities that don't look like us cannot have any say-so or are not a part of.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely an artist. I mean, art is whatever you make it. So my world is art. I am art. But, wow, 20 million? We have done over 400 or 500 programs, reached over 1,500 to 2,000 people, work with 80 partners now with nowhere near that budget. I mean, if we had that budget, I would be able to almost put my program for free in every school in the city, literally, plus my community programs. So that's more employment, black and brown folks in all STEAM sectors, and more free STEAM programming. And I bring in all these types of art, like it's all types of programming we bring in. So students would have complete access to free program, at least one program they know is free in their school.
Well, my lifelong dream has been to have a school of my own. So I would definitely open that up, but also reach back to all of those students that I once taught that just weren't given the opportunity, and provide scholarships. And not just a scholarship for to go to a college, but a scholarship to invest in the business that they may have, or an opportunity for them to have someone invest in their dream and the things that they want to see come into fruition.
Said 20 million, 5 of it would be to get great attorneys to sue the United States for its discrimination against our children, to go after those corporations that we did free labor for, and that as a part of that agreement would be to fuel in trillions of dollars to eradicate the disparity in education on all levels, but especially within the arts, and to also hire artisans, to give them a sustainable wage. All labor is equal, except for when it comes to artists, even amongst us. You know, so that's that. I would also purchase land that we can build and have some land equity as artisans, that we would have a place that we all have ownership in, that we create. I traveled to Israel. You know, they have a kibbutzim educational system. Well, we would have a kibbutzim land bank for our artists to be a part of, and to develop and grow, and to have residual wealth. You know, how do we have residual wealth? By making sure we're a part of what takes residual wealth in this world and in this country. It's land, education, but it's also papping our country and say, I love America. I've traveled many places. Russia, I mean, they got great, great programs for their artists. And we condemn them? No, we need to condemn ourselves, and we need to pop our country on the back of the hand and say, it's time to ante up, it's time to repair the nation, truly.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience who has a question for any of the artists? You do?
Sure.
Shoot.
I appreciate all of you being here, and it was a privilege to hear all of your perspectives. I take a lot from what everybody says. And one thing that kind of comes out and it was surprising was the amount of internal kind of criticism between different kinds of creatives, right? Those who are instrumentalists versus singers, those who see the theory versus practitioners, right? And the kind of performers are not the same as the theoreticians, and so you can't read. Can you read? That's a very powerful kind of question that you kind of quoted. The idea of the visual arts, the performing arts, and even the martial arts, all of these things, it seems to me, and something you said was around STEAM, and then at the end of your talk, you talked about team. And I wonder if maybe instead of STEAM, it's teams. So, and when you look at just the wealth of talent in this room, what if that were the first team? And I think this is the beginning of that. And it's been a privilege to listen to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
This was created by an African American in the 1850s American. But he also got the rights or the what do you call it?
Oh, here, you need the mic.
The copyright for this instrument is the most democratic of all instruments. But he also got the rights for the submarine.
Oh my God,
Right.
the same.
Okay.
Oh my goodness.
We don't even teach our children that the simplest genius resides inside of you to create possibility and to let them know that just something is simple that is the world over. And people make fun of it. Why? Because we invented it. So we must support each other, support our arts. And, it's just been a privilege to be with you here today. Thank you, Joy Brown, for including me and inviting us. And I love our mayor, Ross Baraka. He's an artist and a poet as well. His father was, his mother, a wonderful dancer. And so we must have a bigger room and a bigger space, and it is important. Why is art and why does music matter? Because as they say, music soothes the savage beast. Well, we don't have any savage beasts. But if you got that kind of a belief that music can heal and art can heal, then why are you not making sure we have that so plentiful throughout this nation? I'm not just talking about the great city, I'm talking about the whole country. So God bless you.
Thank you. I want to thank our panelists, Roy Cambello, Andres Brady, Fallon, your last name, Davis, Ryan McNeil, I worked with her and still don't know her last name, and Antoinette Montague. I'm some random chick they picked up off the street. So, but I want to end this, and I want to thank you all for coming out. I really do. I want to end this with a quote. I listened to a table talk from a great artist. I never had the pleasure to meet him, but everyone that I know him talk about how he impacted their life, and his name was Jerry Gant. And so on the table talk, I'm just pulling bits and pieces. He begins with, and my mother would say to me, boy, if you didn't get high, you could become one bad mother effer. And I would just look at her, just how y'all looking at me too. And so he goes on and he begins to talk about meeting an artist named Stay High. And the artist, Stay High had nothing to do with narcotics. He was just talking about staying high on life and artistry. And so Jerry finds himself within art. And he goes on, and this is what he says. That's where we met. The rebels, the poets, those who was thrown away was up there, and we were getting down for our crown. And he says, and through the community, and through that community of what I call art, that's when it came. That's where it began. And through that, I started walking just a little more confident. And he ends by saying, and I told my mother, I said, Shirley,
There's going to be no more coke selling, no more coke sniffing, no more collect calls from jail, and definitely not sleeping on no more couches, ma. Because now I done became one bad mother effer. Wow. This is from Jerry Gant, who was a Newark resident, born and raised. And I was touched by this. I heard this TED Talk months ago, how art impacted this kid. Well, he's a grown man. How art impacted him. He was using, selling, the whole nine, but he found self-esteem and he found himself in the arts. Imagine how many kids out there, I hate to use the word kids, but I'm old enough to say it. Imagine how many children out there don't know there's a way out. Right. And the arts, no matter what avenue it is, whether it's martial arts, visual arts, whether it's working in community gardens, because that's a form of artistry, whether it's music, education, whether it's performance. Imagine the amount of children that don't know that they have a way out. Let's say even architecture, because he talked about he talked about the meeting at Newark Public Library and studying architecture. These were the kids that nobody wanted in their classrooms. They were studying architecture. The arts is an outlet. It is a way out. It is salvation for our children. And we have to figure out how to get funding. Even if we don't get funding, we have to figure out something to do to get arts in here, even if it's from a grassroots standpoint. I want to thank everybody for coming. I got to rush out. I'm going to use the bathroom real quick. And then I'm going to rush. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, that's right.
You say everything.
Thank you.
I
hope you're editing people. I hope you're editing people on point, because they're going to have to do a lot of cutting when I was on the mic. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful evening. Thank you all again. And I need to I have your information. I got to get everybody's information.